The concept of time travel has always fascinated me because the moment you get into a show, movie, anime, or a video game, you immediately know what you're in for. You usually don't have to watch half a film just to be interested in it or some weird plot twist or to see what it was all about. Time travel stories could be thrilling and horrifying at the same time. Mostly because as humans, we have evolved to the point where we have made life a lot easier for ourselves. Or you want to travel hundreds of kilometers away to I don't know, an anime convention? Well, that's no problem because I can just get in my car and drive there. Or, wow, this anime looks cool. I wonder what it's actually like being in Japan. But it's, thousands of kilometers away from me, and even though I never really skip leg day at the gym, it's pretty hard for me to get there on foot. But no problemo because science and technology has got you covered. You can just fly there in a matter of hours. So as humans we've evolved and got solutions to everything in this modern age. But still, there is something that even as humans cannot control. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is time. You can't go back and undo the weird thing you said in the class the other day and embarrass yourself in front of everyone. Or you cannot go back and see what your parents or grandparents looked like or acted like when they were your age. And you cannot go back and tell your 5-year-old self to buy Bitcoin, am I right, guys? Time just passes by and you cannot do anything about it. But when something like a TV show or a movie lets us have that feeling of, what if it did? And Jimmy Neutron is a show about a genius kid who invents a lot of weird stuff, a lot of gadgets if you will. And I remember watching Jimmy Neutron as a kid, and for me the most memorable episodes of Jimmy Neutron were the ones where he and his friends traveled through time. And I still think about these episodes a lot because sometimes these episodes are too dark for like a kid's show. And I'm basically gonna be talking about the episodes which are purely about time travel and not like the ones where they just use it for 5 seconds and then leave it. Just the main Jimmy Neutron episodes whose entire premise revolves around time travel. So there are a total of 3 such time travel episodes in the whole Jimmy Neutron's 3-season run. And the first episode that we're going to be talking about is the season 1 episode 4B titled Time Is. So this is like an 11-minute episode because it's a part B. For some reason they would air two 11-minute episodes and sometimes they would just have a 22-minute normal length episode. So I don't know, maybe they were experimenting in the beginning or something. But anyways, the basic premise of the whole episode is that Jimmy wants to buy the Encyclopedia of Infinite Knowledge, but then he finds out that his parents are too broke to buy it for him. Then Jimmy decides that he will travel back in time to convince his dad to invest in a homeless guy's burger factory because it gets pretty big after some time. Then Jimmy along with Carl and Sheen get in a time booth that looks very similar to one of those doctors' time booth. Doctor Who am I thinking of? I don't know. So they get into TARDIS time booth and go into the past, and Jimmy somehow convinces his dad to invest in the burger factory. So the whole past sequence takes place in Jimmy's home, so we don't see anything else like any other characters, any other places, or what anything looked like in the past or what era was it in, which I would have loved to see if they explored the era a little bit more, like how everything was back in the day. But anyways, Jimmy comes back to his time to find out that his parents are rich now and he got hundreds of encyclopedias in his room, and the episode ends. Because he then realizes that his parents have become total pricks who don't care about him one bit. Jimmy's parents have gone from this goofy all-loving parents to this emotionless workaholic non-loving husk of their past selves. But they live in the same house for some reason. So then Jimmy is like, yeah, I wanna go back and I prefer my parents being broke but loving and actually having emotions instead of whatever the hell this is. So he goes back and undoes whatever he did before. Like they don't show it in the episode. He just goes back and does something, comes back and everything's back to normal. His parents are broke like they were and actually love him, and he also gets the encyclopedia he wanted as his mom is like, you know what, I'll buy you the encyclopedia from the savings I had for our family trip because it's so important to you. And yeah, Jimmy gets what he wanted without interfering with the laws of nature, and the episode ends there. So this episode is like the usual going back in time and changing stuff, becoming rich, just like in Back to the Future. But instead, Jimmy's parents turn into like one of those influencer parents who don't care about their child. And basically I love this episode because it's just the classic time travel, going back and changing things, but in this one they put a twist on it, on how Jimmy didn't like the version of the future and changed things back to how they were and learned some important lessons. Like to him, the love of his parents means way more to him than any encyclopedia ever will. Except he also gets the encyclopedia in the end, so a win-win it is for Jimmy. I mean, for a kids show made by Nickelodeon, it's a pretty heavy episode.
Weight has nothing to do with it.
And that is what I love about time travel, how it pushes the boundaries for even a kid's show into making something deep, I would say. I honestly would have loved if they showed how he went back and actually asked his dad that, please do not invest in the burger factory, I take back what I said, or whatever he does to somehow undo everything. But honestly, they probably didn't have enough time to fit all of that into the episode. Because again, it's an 11-minute episode, so we got what we got, and honestly, it was pretty good. Good enough. The next time travel episode though is a rather unusual one, with them not going back to a couple of years but like 200 million years. It's the season 2 episode 2 titled Sorry Wrong. Unlike the last two episodes, this one is actually a full-length 22-minute episode. At the start of the episode, we see Jimmy messing around with his friends, testing the new quantum replay 9000 that he invented, which looks like a TV remote and can rewind time from a couple of seconds to, well, we'll see in the episode how far back it can go. I actually remember as a kid, after watching this episode, I would try to turn my TV remote into a time travel device by taking it apart, and somehow I just hoped that it would turn into something that Jimmy had made, but sadly, I didn't succeed yet. But anyways, Jimmy's dad accidentally sends them back 200 million years into the past because he's Jimmy's dad and he's dumb and that is his personality and just be laughing or something, I don't know. So after Jimmy and his friends fight them back in the Jurassic period, and I know in the episode Jimmy says that they're in the late Cretaceous period, but that's just wrong.
We're trapped in the late Cretaceous period!
Come on guys, you had Google back then. At least get your facts right. Then Jimmy tells his friends to not interact with the environment so much because it could mess up the timeline because of the butterfly effects and all that. And of course his friends don't listen to him. And then they encounter something so scary that gives me nightmares even to this day. A CGI dinosaur. Do you guys just love CGI? God, I love when shows do that. In the middle of everything, Sheen gets carried away by you know what, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the name of the creature, which drops him off to his nest where Sheen easily befriends its babies. In the meanwhile, Jimmy's dad is having lots of fun with the device, messing around and being a total menace. To the point where there's a joke within the episode that he gets a lady pregnant over and over again. Yeah, I don't know, I just noticed this joke. Yeah, it is a little bit weird. After all of that, Jimmy somehow manages to recreate the quantum replay, which I always thought how that's even possible. But it's not even possible to make something like that in the modern day, so... Then they get chased by the scary CGI dinosaur again. And then Sheen saves the day with his newly made friends, and then they boot up the device, and then they go back to their time, safe and sound. Honestly, this episode is the most memorable for me because it is just terrifying. Not a lot of time travel media does this kind of plot, and if you really watch this episode as a kid, it just stays with you. It has all the basic butterfly effect type of thing going on, where they try not to mess up the timeline too much, which of course kind of introduced me to this concept at a very early age. But it has its flaws, like nothing really changes, even though Jimmy and his friend think toward the end of the episode that it did, but it's a joke. And it's not a perfect one, but it really is my personal favorite out of all 3 time travel episodes. Now let's move on to the 3rd season. This is another unique time travel episode if you compare it with the previous 2 episodes. It's the season 3 episode 8 titled The Tomorrow. And I say it's unique because in this episode they don't go back in time, but instead they go
To the future!
Jimmy invents an arch. They can see into the future. All 3 of them see what they have become in the future, and they're actually very successful. Sheen becomes a top model, and Carl made animals talk. And Jimmy, can't forget the old Jimmy, Jimmy has won several Nobel Prizes. But wait, the arch has another mode where you can actually go into the future and meet your future selves. But before they can go to the future, they have to drop off a gift to Libby because it's her birthday. And of course, nothing unusual happens to the gift or anything. They honestly could have left the gift in the present, came back and dropped it off, but who cares, am I right? After dropping off the gift, they go into the future, seeing that it is somehow a little different to what they saw previously. There's a Robocop that shows up to arrest all 3, and it has basically become a dictatorship, with the dictator being Libby. Remember when I said nothing happens to the gift? Yeah, I lied. Somehow Carl messed up the gift and it motivated Libby to become evil. Yeah, this episode isn't the best at setting up the plot lines. Like, you did not have to drop off the gift before going into the future, but that could have happened anyway, I guess. But still, you know, the pacing is definitely weaker than the other 2 over here. So now Jimmy and his friends have to go to the past and undo the thing that made Libby so evil, but there's a problem. They don't have any device that can send them back into the past. They only came here in hopes that Jimmy's future self will have the same portal that they came through to get back. Now this is already kinda weird, like where's Jimmy's time booth from the previous episode? Why in every time travel episode Jimmy makes a new device to travel through time? I mean, in the 2nd episode I get it because it's technically a time rewind device, but in this one he could have just made the portal that can only see into the future and actually use the time booth from the last episode to travel into it. That would have been a much safer option, considering now a Robocop is chasing them and they've got nowhere to go. Now Jimmy has to find his future self in order to get back, and they all find out that their future selves are also living terrible lives. Carl has become a convict, Sheen is kinda homeless, and Jimmy has become a house husband who has left science for good. Now they don't explain why he did that and how he became who he did, but luckily future Jimmy still has a time portal and they go back and do the gift giving thing and the episode ends there, except it doesn't. Now this episode is actually 23 minutes long and I think it should have been an 11 or 12 minute episode where they just go back and undo what went wrong and the episode just ends there. But instead the Robocop that was previously chasing them follows them back into the portal, and that makes the episode a little intense, makes the stakes a little higher, but I'm still not a fan of it. I mean, we get a cool rock concert sequence where the music plays throughout the whole fiasco, so that's kinda cool. Then the gift gets destroyed and the cool Robocop disappears and everything just stays the same, I guess. I think at this point you know that I'm not a big fan of this episode, mainly because they should have explored how their future selves became so different. Especially Jimmy. He could have told a story about what made him leave science. In the episode it's shown that he's married to Cindy and it's implied that she is the reason, but that doesn't make any sense because in the original timeline where he's successful, where he gets a couple of Nobel Prizes and actually keeps chasing his passion for science, who did he marry then? I mean, Sandy can be the only reason he left science, right? Or did that dictator Libby also ban any science experiments? I just don't get it. But I don't hate this episode, I actually really like the first half of it. Except this flower bit, it is very annoying when watching the episode. And I know it's just there so that Carl messes up the gift, but it's still really annoying. But anyway, when they're in the future, it's really cool as this is the first time where we get to explore a little bit of the city and the people when traveling through time. It's a shame that they didn't stay there longer and explore further into the characters a little more, but that's okay I guess. But overall, Jimmy Neutron was one of the first time that I learned about time travel, the butterfly effect, parallel timelines. And honestly, that's pretty good for it being a show for kids. Everyone watched it growing up wanted to be Jimmy Neutron at one point. So I think it does what it wanted to do pretty successfully. Of course, if you watch it now being an adult, it's not gonna be the most mind-blowing thing ever. Some of the stuff is a little janky here and there, like when you watch enough time travel materials, you're gonna find out that it's not the most accurate depiction of time travel. Because at the end of the day, it's a Nickelodeon show and it does not have much time to go into some of the stuff. Because sub-episodes are again 11 minutes long, but it's a good way to get into some of these concepts. And that's the thing about time travel, anything that adapts it gets pretty heavy.
There's that word again. Heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future?
And yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say. See you guys in the next one.